What's up, Oasis?
How's it going?
On this crazy when YouTube fails, whatever.
And as the world knows, it kept spinning.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, that's the truth. I couldn't get on my gossip though, right?
My fuel hate isn't really as it's not as pensive as it usually is
Right.
today. I think we might go to the end of the day and be like, I'm kind of chill. What's going on today?
Right?
You might get home and actually love your wife and your husband and
Right?
have fun with your kids.
Right? You're gonna be. So do I say that and it be captured by the internet media? It's possible for you to go a day and not have your legs go numb sitting on the toilet on Facebook. Happened today. You're a part of it. So.
Let's keep this trend going. People.
Yeah. Over the weekend, a lot of people were super involved. We had a marriage event. We are getting reports of static.
Static. I think it was my channel.
We're going to try it again. So let us know by text if you have an iPhone, send it over to me and we'll get it somewhere. So marriage event over the weekend, which was super awesome, by the way. It's just so cool to see all the couples come in there and good conversations, great content.
Yeah.
And that was really encouraging to see. I got it.
Good deal.
It was one of those things where Christy and I, my wife and I, we had a chance to go home and just visit, and it was fun. It was good content, and we have our oldest son. It's going to be in his realm sometime in the next couple of years, and he's like, just good information to pass on. And then of course, yesterday Bradley bringing up and opening up a series on missions, and that was pretty convicting. Holy cow. Like I was sitting there just thinking who will go,
and the numbers don't lie.
And the numbers don't lie. There's less and less people that are going on the mission field, but the reality is I think there's less and less people talking to people about Jesus, just living a missional lifestyle.
Yeah. That might be the worst of the two outcomes.
I think so. People aren't going across the street to talk to their neighbor, to love their neighbor. But, at the same time, I think there's actually less and less outward acknowledgement of a love of God. And that's problematic,
And it's going to show up.
And it's going to show up. It absolutely is going to show up. Today I have a message that is actually coming from the book of John, and it's John chapter 9. I'm still talking about the man born blind, and Jesus heals him. This is the story of him, this guy that was born blind, that he had been a beggar, he'd been kind of an outcast. The disciples asked Jesus who sinned, or asked who sinned, his mom or his dad, and Jesus was like, it was neither, right? Like it was, all of this is really going down or reasoning. And then we have where we're going to catch up is going to be chapter 9. I'll go ahead and start where he heals him, and then we need to get into a few things. And it says, having said these things, he spit on the ground and made mud with his saliva, and then he anointed the man's eyes with the mud and said to him, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. So he went and washed and came back seeing. And that's the really kind of the hanging point there, is he comes back seeing, and this is where I really want to get it across. And as I was reading a lot of things, talking to you guys before we went online, there was a lot of commentaries and a lot of folks that were talking about like how he did go and he did the work. It's what we talked about last time. Is like, after Jesus puts the mud on his eyes, he still had some work to do. Like he still had to go get to this pool, but he did, and he comes back. And can you imagine what that was? This was the man that was born blind and had been blind. So to come back and see what you're eating all of a sudden, like the experience of eating is completely different now. Like he doesn't have to find his food, whether or not where it is. He knows where his food is. He knows what he's eating. Maybe he'll like this texture, but now he sees what he's eating. So everything was completely different for this individual. And Jesus does this, and he heals him. But it actually brings up another side of this, as we all know these situations that what happens when God doesn't heal the way that we want to be healed. Takes the affliction. In this case, man, God does this, Jesus does this, and he makes an example out of this situation. The guy didn't come find him. He wasn't out, banging doors or whatever the case is. Jesus sees him, takes care of him, right? As this example. And I read this, and man, it was strong. It was an excerpt from something else, and it says, "The man went to the pool groping in the dark and came back walking in the light. The man came to the pool hopeless and came back filled with blessed joy. The man came to the pool with earnest desire to get healed and came back with a full assurance of having what he prayed for. The man came to the pool blind and he came back seeing." But then you have New Testament. We see it throughout the entire New Testament. You see Paul. Paul begged God to heal him and take the thorn from him. That's what, Second Corinthians, right?
I believe so.
He begs God, and God's response is, "My grace is sufficient for you." And I read this quote, and this was actually on here, and it says, "Sometimes God does not calm the storms in our lives, but rather he calms the child while in the storm." And I'm just here telling everybody, and myself included, I think there are times that we are praying and we are praying and we are praying, and we need to understand that God heals according to his purpose, that God takes care of us according to his will. And that bothers us because although we are super, super important to God and he loves us uniquely and individually, he is also not us. And there are things in our lives where sometimes we have to go down the road to learn that in his grace is sufficient, and in our weakness, his power is demonstrated. And sometimes our hurt, whatever that is, we're going to have to rely on God. We're going to have to run to God. In our pain, in our suffering, and all of those things, God, our reliance on him is made known. Everybody has a story. Everybody has hurt. Your mother passing away during the pandemic. My mother passing away when I was 8. We miss our mom.
Yeah.
That is a hurt, and that is a struggle of, there are times where still to this day I ask, God, why, man? My mom would love to have seen my kids. But I trust God. I don't understand it, and yeah. I don't understand all the things that have happened. We live in a lost, broken world. That I know, and I know that God is also with us, and that God heals according to his plan. And, both of our situations, how amazing is God that he healed completely our moms,
yeah.
And so I will find joy in that. But that's a choice, and that's a choice for us to look into God and lean into him.
It is very much. I mean, I look at Salem, I'm like, man, I wish you could have met your grandmother.
Sure, sure.
And then and there's the choice, like, all right, do I go angry of like, my child doesn't have a grandmother? And
right.
It's just that simple.
Right.
How we go diving down that rabbit hole of anger, and then we're turning against God. And
Sure.
Yeah, and we lose ourselves in it.
Yeah, we do. But that's the thing is God knows everything, and his plan is right. And again, how amazing is it for you to be able to tell your daughter, for me to tell my kids, and just explain to them who they were like, but
Yeah.
how amazing is God that he brings us home. Which ultimately is the assurance that he have. He has a 100% track record of bringing us home to glory with him.
Yeah.
He heals completely. It may not be in our time frame, but he heals completely. And so that's something that I think that we all need to understand, that he does heal according to his purpose. And we have a purpose of being his hand and feet here, and going through the struggle and letting people see what hurt looks like, but see what hope looks like as well.
Yeah, and this is just popping on my mind just because it's fresh, it's recent, and Scripture says to have faith like a child. And one night we were driving home, literally 2 or 3 weeks ago, and Justice looks out the window and he goes, "Huh, that star looks like Grandma."
Right
you know?
on.
I'm
Praise
just like,
God for that. Yeah.
and just the connection, and it's for me, I'm just sitting there in awe of the moment.
Sure.
And it's like the faith of a child of, man, God says that he's going to bring us into his presence, and theology is not all the way there, but it's like, man, that's Grandma's up there with God.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. So kind of keeping the same vein of like, man, coming back, seeing it, as you were talking, it's like, oh, the passage I'm kind of hinting towards and or looking at. I want to just bring it to this reality of mental capacity, and really kind of coming from the approach not necessarily mental illness, and I'm not even going to try and say that what I'm about to say is going to solve your problem, not even putting any light into that, but Scripture is very strong in the reality of us being vigilant with our thoughts, and really almost going to war against them, because it doesn't take much for our thoughts to really just settle in and affect us. That is very prevalent in our society and in our just broken nature. But what are we going to do about it? And so I'm kind of coming from this perspective of our mental capacity, because I think a lot of it, for me, my mental capacity, when I overload my mental capacity, like I think I found myself this weekend like irritated by nothing, but can't get rid of, and not irritated at anyone, but it's like I'm just irritated. Like you could say something, and I'm like, "What do you want?"
That's it.
And I kind of started sitting in that moment of going like, "Why am I irritated?" If I'm asking myself, "Why am I irritated?" There's probably some reason why I'm irritated, and just kind of going through this checklist, and like, man, the checklist is forever long at work. It's forever long at home, and it's like, oh, maybe I'm allowing all this weight that I'm carrying, and although God has gifted me to do some things and to be a dad and be a husband and work at a church, but the reality is, like, he's like, hey, I didn't say do everything. I said, this is your spot, this is your position, and I'm going to use you in that capacity. So Proverbs 4, just a couple of verses, starting in verse 21. It says, "Let them not escape from your sight. Keep them within your heart, and for they are the life to those who find them, and the healing to those with fresh air." It says, "Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life. Put away your crooked speech, and put devious talk far away from you. Let your eyes look directly forward, and your gaze be straight before you, pondering the path of your feet." But that first verse that kind of started and ended with it, of keeping your heart with vigilance, but it says, "Let not my words," is what he was talking about. Solomon, or God talking to Solomon, says, "Let not my words escape your sight." And so painting this full picture of, man, the gospel, let not the gospel escape your sight. And asking the question, how do we do that? I mean, Jesus is not here on this earth. We have his stories. But there's also another element of not just reading his word and knowing his word, but it's actually picturing ourselves with Jesus.
Yeah, right on.
Of what Jesus has promised us from his word and from his life. Because, and we do this all the time with our own life. We picture ourselves 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road, and we're looking at our life right now, and we're frustrated, we're stressed out, we're depressed, because we see our life is not taking those steps that lead in that direction. And so here again, we're adding weight. But how many times are we actually looking at this point of where Jesus is going to have me in eternity? Where's he going to have me in 5 years, 10 years down the road? and really allowing that perspective to really settle in and us grab hold of it. Because I think so much we grab hold of our own lives, and we attach the gospel to our lives, but we control how big that space is.
Yeah.
Just as Pastor Brad was bringing up the numbers don't lie. We were ascending church,
Right.
And people not speaking about the gospel with each other, of that being the starting point of even God being able to share with you where he wants to use you, where he sees you, wants you, and has you 10, 20, and 30 years down the road in eternity.
Right.
And we're filling in all those gaps, and we're letting go of his words. We're not keeping his words at our sight. We're not pondering our way because of his words. We're pondering our way. We're definitely do it. We do that every day. That's easy. But we are not keeping his words in front of us.
Yeah.
And therefore our actions are not, they're not really stirring up to the good works that we see God using the disciples with, that we see God using Paul with. Because, man, there's only a couple of places where we know that Paul was a tent maker. Everything else is, I see you have a God of the unknown God. Let me share with you what that God is. And we see all these elements of Paul speaking the gospel. And we see like very few moments of like, okay, I got to eat today. Let me make this tent real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So man, I think the challenge of us keeping inside of our mind his words in front of us.
Yeah.
And letting that mental capacity really be more worried about what all do we know about this.
Right.
And not where can this get me?
Right. Man, and I think that the draw of the flesh is strong, but it's weak.
Yeah.
The flesh is weak.
Yeah.
And, our heart is deeply bent on, we want to be angry, we want to be anxious, certainly we have control issues. But I think that what you said right there is really strong, and it's just being bent on the gospel. It's keeping that in front of us. That's going to be the solution.
Yeah.
I'll end my part with this. It's out of Deuteronomy 31 and 31:6, and it says, "Be strong and courageous." We've heard this before. "Be strong and courageous. Do not fear in the dread of them, for it is the Lord your God who goes with you, and he will not leave you or forsake you." Given that knowledge, and given that the gospel is eternal and supremely important, find peace in that and dwell on it. Dwell on the conversations that we get to have about God's grace in our life, and what he has in fact done for us. We did not deserve or earn salvation, yet we have it.
Yeah.
Tell that story, and keep that in front of us. Love you guys. Thanks for those of you who tracked us down.
Thanks for finding us today.
Yeah, thanks for finding us. Appreciate the love, and we hope to see everyone. And we're anxious. I am anxious to hear the conversations that you are having about Christ. Like, come find us. As pastors, as leaders of a church, man, it does our hearts good when people come up and be like, "So I've been having this conversation about Jesus." Yes. All right. That is such a win, and that does everybody good.
Give me energy to get to this day.
Yeah,
Yes,
for
let me
real.
listen to that.
So we hope to see you guys again, and love you guys. We'll see you later.